Billionaire Charles Koch spoke to Axios, and this clip is so revealing for a number of reasons. He's an oligarch. He's a billionaire oligarch, and let's see what he has to say about the people that he attempted to buy, the politicians that he attempted to corrupt.
When did you realize that you screwed up?
Some of the politicians that we had helped get elected, I would see them on TV, and they would be talking about policies that were antithetical against immigration, against criminal justice reform, against a more peaceful foreign policy. I was horrified. I mean,
you had funded it because
we had vetted them. We had vetted them all, and they all seemed aligned on our major issues and on empowering people. And then once they got elected, I didn't expect them to fully agree with us on everything, but to be at least be champions on some of the major ones we were working on and that they said they were, and then do the opposite.
And was it more that it was giving the principles a bad name, or you just weren't getting results?
No, we couldn't get results, and the whole purpose of getting into politics were find people who would help move us toward a society of equal rights and mutual benefit, where people could realize their potential. And
it turned out politicians were
doing the opposite of it.
The first point I want to make is that he's incredibly entitled, because his assumption is, I bought these politicians. They have to do exactly what I want them to do. And when they don't, I get offended by that. And I'm going to run to the media to point it out and say, you believe these guys? I gave them all this money and they're not even doing everything I want them to do. The entitlement. Because the question is, hey, why should you have any role in this? Because you do have more influence over these people than the voters, than the constituents, than the American people. Our government is supposed to be a constitutional republic and a representative democracy. And you're like, forget the representative democracy part, I bought them. So are they in line with my philosophy or no? That's what matters to me. You're incredibly entitled. Honestly, I think the best way to describe how he views himself and what his role is that he's an American Ayatollah. He's an American Ayatollah. Because over 90% of the time in these congressional races, the candidates that win raise the most money. So this guy has the ability to make or break you. He could cut you a few checks, and that's it. He makes your political career. He makes it so that you win your seat. Why should anybody have that kind of power? Because I think that fundamentally destroys the principle of one person, one vote, and equal representation. Because him, Sheldon Adelson, these people obviously have way more influence than a random grandmother in Cleveland. And that shouldn't be the case. You should represent the random grandmother in Cleveland just as much as you represent this guy. And actually more so the random grandmother in Cleveland, because more people agree with what she's in favor of. These guys have a very particular viewpoint ideology that they're pushing. So he's incredibly entitled. That's the first point. Second point is he's covering his own ass here quite a bit. What I mean by that is he doesn't bring up the areas where they do agree with him and where they have worked on his behalf and where he's corrupt. So he buys all these politicians. What's the most important thing for him? Cut my taxes and deregulate. And oftentimes he wants, subsidies for his companies, and he's gotten billions of dollars worth of subsidies for his companies. But outside of that, he pretends like I'm big on the free market, so I want lower taxes and deregulation. I would guess virtually all the people who he's given money to have given him lower taxes and deregulated. They've all voted in that way. I'm sure they all voted for that 2017 Republican tax cut bill. I'm sure he supported the 2017 Republican tax cut bill. So he's overselling how his hands are clean. And he's not telling you that that's the most important part, and that's the corruption. The corruption is, I'm a billionaire, I want to keep more of my money, I want to deregulate and get the government off my ass, so let me buy these politicians, and they'll do exactly that for me. Okay, so he's hiding that part. But then this is the interesting part to me. And this is what he was flabbergasted by. He apparently is for more immigration. He's for criminal justice reform, and he's for a less hawkish foreign policy. And so he's like, well, hold on now. I bought these politicians. They did the tax cuts for me and the deregulation, but they didn't do the other things I want. These Republican politicians, I want, more immigration. I want criminal justice reform. I want peaceful foreign policy. I supported these people, and then on those issues, they kind of turned their back on me. You want to know why, Charles? Also because of corruption. There's more money on the other side of those issues for them right now. So, for example, you want to know why the Republican Party is not in favor of stopping wars? They take more money from the military-industrial complex than they take from you. So they're going to represent those interests. Raytheon, Boeing, Halliburton, Honeywell, the list goes on of all these defense contractors. That's why, Charles Koch, you gave them a certain amount of money. I'm sure it's a lot. But when you add up all the money that they've taken from the various defense contractors and the individuals associated with the so-called defense companies, that's more money. So they're going to represent them. They're going to represent them. When it comes to immigration, by the way, why does Charles Koch want more immigration or looser immigration laws? I'll let you guess. In fact, there's a famous Bernie quote on this. He says, open borders is a Koch brothers proposal. Why? Because he can bring in what he views as cheap labor to undercut American wages. That's why he wants, not like, he cares so deeply for humanitarian reasons. No, are you kidding me? What a joke. Of course not. So, but what's interesting is, so he brings up criminal justice reform. They did do that. They did the First Step Act, which was a step in the right direction. I guess he wants them to go further. To his credit, he wants them to legalize marijuana, I guess, or at least decriminalize it, which I agree with him on. But, my dude, this is not how the system should work. It shouldn't be that you're a whiny billionaire, you cut a check, and then you're like, why didn't you do everything I wanted? I mean, they did the big ticket ones, cut your taxes and deregulate it, and that's corrupt. But he's crying for more corruption. No, I want them to come to the conclusion that we need to legalize, tax, and regulate marijuana because the American people want to legalize, tax, and regulate marijuana. It's over a 60% issue these days. That's why I want them to do it. I want them to do it because some billionaire cut them a check, because then you open up the door to billionaires going to cut them checks in the other direction as well. They could represent them. I trust the will of the American people, and I want that implemented more than I want the will of a random American Ayatollah billionaire. So he's incredibly entitled, and he seems shocked that, on certain issues they listen to him and they do his bidding, and on other issues they don't. But there's a part that you didn't see in this clip, which was earlier on, where he says, we messed up. I messed up because I was too partisan in how I approached this. Notice what he's saying there. I've been donating for decades now to just Republicans. Really, I should donate to Democrats too. That should terrify you. You want to know why? Because when he gives money to Democrats, not only is he going to want his position reflected on immigration, his position reflected on criminal justice and less war, he's going to want the tax cuts and the deregulation from them as well. So he will move the Democratic Party more towards that position if he cuts enough checks and if it's for enough money. Isn't it gross that this is how the system works? We shouldn't accept this. This should be outrageous. But I love how it's just casually discussed as if it's like, it is what it is.